Captain screamed, "Send help," until F-22s recognized her call sign Viper. The cabin lights flickered as the Boeing 777 cruised at 35,000 feet over the rugged Nevada desert. Captain Richard Harlow's hands trembled on the yoke, a rare sight for a man with over 20 years of flying experience. The autopilot was disengaged, but the co-pilot's headset was dead, and the cockpit was eerily silent except for the insistent thrum of the engines. "Send help!" Richard shouted into the radio, his voice cracking. "Mayday! Mayday! We have a total electrical failure." Static filled the speakers. No response. Panic clawed at his chest. The passengers were restless, and cabin attendants whispered nervously among themselves. Every second felt like a lifetime. Then, the cockpit door opened, and a woman stepped in with an air of calm that immediately contrasted the chaos. She was tall, fit, and dressed in a simple black flight jacket with aviator sunglasses tucked into her hair. Her presence seemed almost cinematic, like she had stepped out of a fighter jet poster. "Who the hell are you?" Richard demanded, glancing at the flight attendants in bewilderment. The woman didn't answer immediately. She walked to the controls with a measured confidence, her eyes scanning the malfunctioning panels. "Name's Lieutenant Cassandra Viper Morgan," she said, finally, her voice firm yet calm. "I used to fly F-22 Raptors. Looks like you could use some help." Richard froze. F-22 pilots were elite, some of the best in the Air Force. The thought that one was now standing in his cockpit, assessing his every move, made him swallow hard. "Sit down. Stay out of my way," he muttered, trying to regain control. Cassandra didn't sit. Instead, she flipped open a small tablet from her jacket and scanned the systems. "Your auxiliary power isn't responding. Your electrical failure is cascading. We need to manually reroute power to the hydraulics to stabilize the plane before attempting an emergency landing." Richard had flown through turbulence, storms, and even minor mechanical failures. But this was unprecedented. And now, a stranger, a fighter pilot, was calmly telling him how to save his plane. Minutes stretched on like hours as Cassandra barked precise instructions. Her fingers moved like lightning across the cockpit switches, rerouting power, recalibrating sensors, and overriding failing circuits. The passengers below were oblivious to the life-and-death dance happening above them. Then, Richard heard a faint ping on the radio. "Unknown aircraft, identify yourself." Cassandra's eyes narrowed. "That's the Air Force. They must have scrambled jets to respond to your distress signal." Richard's heart skipped. "Jets? They're coming for us?" "They're already here," Cassandra replied, her voice tight with urgency. She reached for a headset and keyed the radio. "Viper here. Do not engage. I'm on the scene." A static-filled response came through. "Viper? Confirm identity." Cassandra smiled slightly, almost grimly. "Cassandra Morgan. F-22. Call sign Viper. Civilian aircraft in distress. Coordinating emergency landing. Stand by." Richard's jaw dropped. Recognition. That one call sign was enough for fighter pilots to understand the authority and skill of the woman in front of him. Immediately, the two F-22s that had been shadowing the plane pulled closer, not with guns drawn, but in perfect formation, ensuring no threat came near. The calm she radiated was infectious. Richard's panic started to fade, replaced by cautious hope. "Okay, Viper, what's next?" "Next," she said, scanning the cockpit instruments, "we stabilize altitude. I'll take temporary control. You monitor airspeed and assist with the hydraulic overrides." Her hands moved with precise grace across the controls, the yoke barely trembling under her touch. The passengers below, unaware of the extraordinary expertise in the cockpit, murmured at the sight of flight attendants moving briskly to calm nervous travelers. "Hold steady, 20,000 feet, 18,000, Cassandra counted, her voice steady, almost like a metronome. The plane wobbled dangerously but didn't dip. Hydraulic system rerouted. We have partial control over flaps and ailerons. We can make it to Nellis Air Force Base. Emergency crews are on standby. Richard exhaled slowly. He had never been so relieved to hear numbers and readings instead of silence and panic. The F-22s maintained position on either side of the jet, almost like guardians in the sky. As the plane descended, Cassandra kept talking, guiding Richard through each adjustment. Flaps 30 degrees. Gear down. Watch the wind shear from the canyon winds. Yes, you're doing fine. Trust the plane. The passengers finally began to notice a strange sense of calm in the cabin. One little boy tugged at his mother's sleeve, whispering, "Mom, why is the plane not falling?" "Shoo," she whispered back, though she had no real answer. On the ground at Nellis, the runway lights glared under the darkening sky. Emergency vehicles lined the tarmac, ready for anything. The F-22s peeled off formation and circled overhead, maintaining communication with Viper. "Final approach," Cassandra said, her hand steady as ever. "Gear confirmed, flap set, stay with me." The plane touched down with an almost graceful thud, and the entire cabin erupted in applause, unaware of the life-and-death calculus that had just been managed in the cockpit. Richard slumped back into his seat, sweat dripping from his brow. Cassandra removed her headset, smiling faintly. "Not bad for a civilian airliner, huh?" You saved all our lives," Richard whispered, almost unable to form words. She shrugged modestly. "Just doing my job. Always trust the training." Passengers poured out, some in tears, some hugging flight attendants, others looking skyward, imagining the two fighter jets that had silently ensured their safety. Richard finally turned to Cassandra, who was already strapping herself into a seat near the cockpit door. "You didn't have to do this," he said quietly. Her eyes met his. "Call sign Viper isn't just for fun. It's a promise. When things go south, I show up. Today, I just happened to be on the right flight." She walked down the aisle with effortless confidence, leaving a trail of awe and inspiration behind her. Outside, the two F-22s ascended back into the sky, vanishing into the dark Nevada night. And somewhere, high above the desert, Captain Richard Harlow realized that the world was full of unknown heroes, people whose call signs could save hundreds of lives in the span of 30 minutes. From that day on, whenever the cockpit grew tense, Richard Harlow would remember Viper, the woman who turned a screaming mayday into a controlled descent, teaching him, and everyone on board, that courage and skill sometimes come in the most unexpected forms.